Imagine a 9-year-old child named Kyle, newly adopted out of foster care. When he's at his new school, he's overwhelmed by all the faces and noises. When his speech therapist pulls him for a session, he's so overstimulated, he hides under the desk. Imagine how the speech therapist might respond. Now meet Chris, a 16-year-old high schooler, also newly adopted out of foster care. When he's pulled for speech therapy, he sits with his head down, hood up, while the clinician is speaking. How do you think the clinician would respond here? Now ask yourself, was there a difference in how your imaginary speech therapist responded to the elementary student versus the teen? Based on my research, I bet good money the answer is yes. Prior to coming back from my PhD, I was a speech therapist in a kindergarten through 12th grade setting. I noticed a clear difference in how educators were responding to similar behaviors in elementary students versus teens, especially for those with a trauma history. But this difference was not well documented in the literature. In my study, I recruited 54 speech therapists who worked with school-age clients. Participants were asked to watch 10 videos showing challenging behavior. 5 of the videos showed a white presenting 3rd grade boy, and 5 of the videos showed a white presenting high school senior. For all videos, both boys demonstrated trauma-related behaviors, including aggression, dissociation, and avoidance. Participants were told that both boys were newly placed in foster care and asked, how would you respond to their behavior? Participant responses were coded using content analysis, guided by the neurosequential model and trust-based relational intervention. Trauma-informed responses were anything rooted in regulation and connection. Regulation-based actions were anything done to calm the child or meet physical or sensory needs. Connection-based actions were anything done to meet the social, emotional, or engagement needs of the child. Non-trauma sensitive actions were any strategies shown to be ineffective when addressing trauma-related behavior, such as reward and punishment systems, shaming, ignoring the client, or using logical reasoning. Paired t-tests showed striking results. Clinicians used significantly more non-trauma sensitive strategies with teens versus the younger child. 80% of interactions with teens versus 57% with elementary students. Clinicians also use significantly more regulation strategies with the younger child. Remember Kyle and Chris. Despite their age difference, their trauma history and nervous system response are incredibly similar. Using trauma-informed strategies in response to trauma is always the best course of action. Trauma doesn't discriminate based on age, and neither should we.
On the left side, you see TCU's locomotor performance lab. We needed millions of dollars to build the lab, and the research that came out of that lab tells us that vertical force is really important for you to be able to run fast. We do lots of athlete testing, and we give coaches the vertical force that they need to be able to make coaching decisions and also improve performance. Now imagine a coach from a small school or a developing country. I used to be one of those coaches. We don't have access to a lot of sports labs, but our athletes do deserve world-class science. So how do we level the playing field for them? The answer lies in physics. So if I'm standing still, the amount of force I'm applying onto the ground equals my body weight. If I need to go up in the air, I need to apply force that needs to be more than my body weight. We apply the same principle to running. In running, if I'm running at top speed at constant velocity, I have air time and contact time. During the contact time, I need to apply a force that is more than my body weight for me to be able to go into the air. Take that force, divide by body weight, we get a ratio. That ratio is equal to total step time divided by contact time. One side, we have a measured force. Other side, we have an estimated force that we can calculate easily from video. Now, at Locomotor Performance Lab, we don't just guess, we test. So we tested 22 male and female sprinters. On a force instrumented treadmill, they ran between 20 to 26 miles per hour, which is really fast. We measured vertical force, contact time, and air time, which gave us measured force and estimated force. We found the difference between these two quantities, and the difference was really small. The difference was only plus or minus 2.5%, which was really accurate. Now coming back to our coach who's trying to help his athletes with limited resources. Now he do not need a sports lab. All he needs is a smartphone recording from the side, measuring contact time, air time, and you'll have its estimated forces. So no lab, no treadmill, only physics. And that's how we level the field in sports science. Thank you.
Imagine two speech-language pathologists listening to the same sentence produced by the same child. The first SLP says, "Yeah, that's correct," while the other one says, "That's incorrect." These small scoring differences can determine whether a child will qualify for special education services. This gap, this moment of interpretation, is what my research is about. Norm reference assessments, like the SELF-5, are meant to support fair and consistent decisions about a child's language needs. Half of SLPs practice in schools, and among these clinicians, the SELF-5 is the most used language test. In particular, the formulated sentences subtest requires children to produce a variety of sentences using specific words. On paper, scoring seems pretty straightforward. In practice, it's not. In my study, I asked 97 SLPs to score the same sentences produced by real children of different ages. These clinicians use the official scoring rubric of the SELF-5, and what we found was striking. For the youngest group, 46% of SLPs gave the correct scale score. For the second oldest, it dropped down to 41%. And for our oldest group, only 28% of SLPs gave the correct scale score. In some cases, 3 out of 4 clinicians gave a completely different scale score, even though they were scoring the same sentences. Many of these scoring differences clustered right around key cutoff points. And these cutoff points are used for special education eligibility. This isn't about blaming clinicians. Clinicians are highly trained professionals that make complex decisions in real-world settings. Instead, these findings highlight a larger issue. When scoring is left to judgment, variability is inevitable. So, what do we do with this gap? My research calls for clearer scoring guidance, stronger training in grammar, and the use of caution when using single test score items to make high-stakes eligibility decisions. Because when 2 clinicians hear the same sentence but reach different conclusions, it's not about who's wrong, it's whether our systems truly service the children that are meant to support. Thank you.
Right. So first, let's talk about maximum human velocity. Right. That's something that's well studied. It's been seen multiple times. We know what that looks like. Right. Runners have to apply forces over 4 to 5 times their body weight in under 1/10 of a second. With those mechanical constraints, there's little room for error and variability. However, with acceleration, people produce forces half as much as maximum velocity, and they're on the ground twice as long. Those mechanical constraints that exist at max velocity do not limit acceleration as much as they limit max velocity. So, for my work, I compared variability within group between max velocity and acceleration within sprinting. Specifically, I looked at data from the World Athletics Biomechanics reports from the 60-meter and the 100-meter World Championships, 2017 and 2018. I used coefficient of variance, that is the standard deviation over the mean, to compare intra-group variability. And what was found, at least for max velocity with Flex research, variability under 10% shows that they do not vary as we would expect, as research shows. However, for acceleration, we found that CVs in some mechanics, one of them being airtime, vary over 20%. This supports our theory that with these lessened mechanical constraints, there are more solutions to running fast and accelerating up to top speed. Thank you.
Raise your hand if you've seen this movie. Okay, for many of us, it was an elementary school classic. It follows a group of kids at a boot camp who are known for their behaviors rather than for who they actually are. Despite their resilience, loyalty, and enduring qualities, they all share one label: troublemaker. But what if those behaviors were a response to something deeper? Language disorders are invisible disabilities. They're not marked by a particular syndrome and are diagnosed primarily through behavior. The prevalence of developmental language disorder is estimated to be between 7 and 12% of the population, making it one of the most common neurodevelopmental disorders. In juvenile justice settings, however, that prevalence is significantly higher. This comes into play when discussing the school to confinement pipeline, a phenomenon that describes the trend where youth who struggle academically are more likely to be funneled from the public schools into the United States juvenile justice system and subsequently the United States criminal justice system. Suspensions, expulsions, and violations of juvenile law are among the primary pathways to incarceration. When language disorders go unrecognized, the behaviors that stem from these disorders could be recognized as defiance rather than disorder. In my study, we talked to teachers at JJAPs, or Juvenile Justice Alternative Education Programs, Texas institutions for youth who have violated juvenile law, been expelled from their home schools, and sent to one of these institutions as a result. Confinement doesn't always mean prison, as it can include juvenile detention centers, house arrests, and boot camps. JJAPs are designed to provide academic intervention while reducing delinquency and promoting rehabilitation. Because many justice-involved students may have unidentified language disorders, teachers in these settings could be among the first to recognize these difficulties. However, language disorders are invisible. My thesis asked teachers at JJAPs whether teachers are trained to recognize language disorders and whether speech-language pathologists may have a role within the juvenile justice education setting. We asked these teachers to define what a language disorder is, describe how they might identify one, and to tell us about any trainings they received. While most participants recalled having received some form of training on language disorders, only 1/3 correctly defined a language disorder as including both understanding and using language. Our findings suggest that further training on language disorders within JJAPs could be beneficial, and that SLPs should collaborate with teachers to recognize language disorders early, ensuring that students receive support before misbehaviors are misinterpreted. After all, when we fail to see what's beneath the surface, children with invisible language disorders may be at risk of falling through the cracks and into holes.